these slides are largely by Tom, and he went over them with me on Wednesday, and then we redid them a little bit. So the outline here is obligatory IEEE intro slides, the IEEE in 2030 initiative, Region 6 initiatives, and Region 6 conferences. Whoops, let me go the upside down. So this is the org chart of IEEE, and Tom wanted me to emphasize that members are at the top, and the members are the purpose of the organization and drive the organization. It's the board of directors that run everything, and if you can tell the difference in the colors, the brighter, lighter blue are the sort of, everybody there at the board. And we are part of membership and geographic activities, and the regions of the sections are what form the membership and geographic activities, but there's also the technical activities that are outside of the regions and with their societies, and then there's publications and standards and educational activities and IEEE USA.
So all 10, before you go away, on the board of directors, you would have the 10 region directors like Tom.
Yes.
Then on technical activities, you'd have just one from TAB, or how many?
Okay, so
thank
you for asking me that question.
Because I've never.
And so this is why I was thinking when Tom said you can do all these slides in 15 minutes. I'm thinking, yeah. So I can't spend 10 minutes on this.
Oh yeah.
So easily. So membership and geographic activities. The world is divided into 10 regions, and each region has a region director. And actually, at the board of directors meeting, Tom Coughlin he's at the big table.
And the rest of us, everybody.
Well, and they sent me a note prior to the meeting saying, now that you're a director-elect, you get assigned and you get to sit in back of the big table. And then everybody else is in the peanut gallery. So I get like a special table, like a special kitty table behind the big table.
The kitty table.
Yes. I call it the kitty table. And so there's 10 directors, and during the meeting they will say, Director Coughlin, what do you say about this? And they give them that title. There's 10 of them. Correspondingly, there are 10 division directors from the what we call the TAB side. And so certain societies, such as computer and communication, are big enough that they get their own division director, and that person is also called director. Other societies are smaller, and they're grouped together in directors. So I'm pretty active in
So you're and
ASS, and so we're in Division 9, but we're in Division 9 along with INM, yeah, and so several other societies, and I don't have memorized all the split. And then the publications is also, I believe they have a representative on the board, and that's like IEEE Explorer, and I believe Spectrum is under that. And then Standards Association it certainly involves the societies, but it's completely outside the societies, and they have corporate members and individual members, and it's not, confined to a particular technical society or region. And then educational activities also have this same quality that educational activities, I've been very involved in particular accreditation, so through ABET, and that certainly is covered under educational activities, but there's also outreach at K-12 activities, continuing education activities, international education activities, and then IEEE USA is outside of this, the member geographic activities, because it is a separate entity. The president of IEEE USA sits on the board of directors with a separate position, and arguably this is regions 1 through 6, but they can do lobbying and policy and things that the international part of IEEE cannot do.
So IEEE USA actually has a seat on the board as
They
well.
do.
So you actually kind of double dip a little.
It will, and
arguably.
And you'll notice that when you go to the region, those of you that were at the region OPCOM, that there's a lot of people that really want to be president of IEEE USA.
Yeah.
And it's changed over year, and so that's part of what's going on there. And so they hate to leave the board, apparently. And at the February meeting, I don't know, did anybody hear about what happened at the February IEEE meeting? So it actually, so I go to a lot of meetings. I would be rich if people would just pay me by the meeting. I'd be a billionaire, I think. But this meeting is the first time I've ever been in a meeting where they wrote it up in a Wall Street Journal the next day.
Wow.
And see, that's IEEE for you. So at that meeting, we were having a very big issue, which was the Standards Association was trying to change their patent policy, or how patents related to standards, and were incorporating standards. And this had gotten the attention very much of major corporations, particularly Apple, Ericsson, and Qualcomm. And so there were write-ups leading up to it, and then there was a big write-up the day after, and they were locking people out of the meeting if they went to the bathroom. Because they didn't want you. It was pretty exciting, but IEEE USA was on one side, and Standards was on the other side.
Interesting.
And so it was pretty exciting. Now on the last column of my org chart, and so Tom told me not to bother changing the org chart, but you see, people ask, people want to know. Executive, he said like executive, I guess committee, but what he means is the paid staff. And the paid, so we have a paid executive director, and the staff, in a sense, all report to him, even if they're designated to serve particular areas.
Gee, left us hanging. I want to hear more. Since I didn't read the Wall Street Journal article, I'm wondering more of what were the decisions that were made at the February meeting, or did they?
Okay, but I don't want to get in trouble for running over time. So
you can run over time. We're not. We're easy here.
So Qualcomm encapsulates it, and basically, so Qualcomm is the big company in my town, San Diego. And so what they have is they have certain patents on CDMA technology, and they are getting patent royalties. And they're something that's called an essential patent. So there are standards, particularly related to Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, things like that, where in order to use that standard, that communication standard particularly, you have to use technology that relies on somebody's essential patent. It has to be essential. And so Qualcomm has a little deal where they get a percentage of the cost of the whole device based on you needing to use their patent. And that is a pretty sweet deal. So when you have like Apple coming out with the new iPhone that has the much bigger screen that now costs $400 more, you're still using that one little chip with Qualcomm's technology, and they are getting proportionally more because they're charging based on the price of the unit.
Sales price.
Yeah. So the issue is what's reasonable, and so what respects the inventor versus what's restraining trade and causing unreasonable. So that was the debate.
So did the board end up siding with the Standards Association, or
yes?
with
So as was report. So I cannot report anything that was discussed, but I can report the Wall Street Journal says that the result was that we approved this, but there was so we approved this, but many Qualcomm. So if you are an inventor and you hold a patent, you would kind of prefer the former situation.
Right, because you have a royalty.
Yeah. If you are, so there was an argument that was basically that maybe the people that come up with the original stuff, maybe they really like the old way, and it's the integrators and the patent trolls that like the new way. So there was debates back and forth. There were questions of the Justice Department getting involved, and so it was pretty exciting. But in the end, they ruled that the Standards Association could change their policy. And so what that meant, though, the policy did not retroactively apply to anything. And it meant these were guidelines as to what they considered to be reasonable. It didn't explicitly say you couldn't decide this. But it also meant that the Standards Association, when it looks at these things, they will tend to avoid including in their standards essential patents if somebody isn't willing to agree to be reasonable. that's kind of the issue. And it was exciting for me because they made all of us directors and directors-elect, and anybody, we had to go to a lot of classes to understand, because it's pretty complex. So, so here is IEEE overall, and so in terms of membership and geographic activities, 10 regions, more than 300 sections, 1,400 student branches. From the technical side, 38 societies, 7 councils. And then outside of that, growing number of networks, communities, 425,000 members, largest technical society in the world, IEEE.
Yeah, it's interesting with this growing, we growing overall, but shrinking in the United States by about 6%
Oh,
a
well,
year.
I got some
Good, we'll talk about
charts for you.
This, by the way, before you hit this line right here is wrong. It actually only hits this little piece right here. It's the
Actually,
very
there's a lot of lines on there.
So
This
I would really, so this, you guys must have seen this particular
Chart
figure
many times.
many times.
This thing really is an awful drawing. It actually causes some
It's
problems.
horrible. And so
There's actually a guy in our section
Yeah.
that has done the whole world,
Could-
and he's actually, I gotta remember what his name is, but I'll find it. Because I actually asked him to send me a real copy, and it turns out that IEEE does this by zip code, is the way they figure it out.
Well, Alicia has a low, not a very high res figure on the old website for your area.
Yep.
That's certainly better than this.
Yep.
If you Google around, which I did, you'll find that it's actually kind of difficult to come up with something better. It's
Yeah.
not impossible, but so I would welcome that leadership,
Yeah.
because you can see we're pretty desperate. Now, up here, you will know that the IEEE Region 6, this is not the official new logo, but our old logo is so bad that on these conference calls, right now Mike Andrews has taken it up as a action item that he's trying to get us a better logo. And so we had 3 or 4 we were looking at, and this was the one that people,
Didn't project how long.
yeah, that we said, okay, so there were things about it I said I didn't like that font on Region 6, and so there's, all these things, but it's way better than the current one, so we're gonna use it.
You should retain the same font and just align it right underneath. They've done that a lot of times, I think, like this, retain the same font.
I guess the area.
And then just line it up underneath or IEEE, it looks a lot better. But
Yeah.
what's the circle thing mean?
Yeah.
Well, so we're still debating.
I don't know what the
I think it was the weather pattern that we had this winter.
Draft logo.
All right, press
So
on.
there was one suggestion that we should have 12 stars.
Yeah.
Instead of 12 states. I'm not joking. And the circle though is an implication like suspect.
More than most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have 5 areas, and I have this very bad chart, and so I think I'm even willing to pay my own money if I give somebody $100 and get a decent figure that I can use that would be pretty cool.
There's
I know graphic artists if you want to do that.
And so we have 35 sections in our region, and including 2 subsections. 7 of these sections are in your own northeast area, and over 228 chapters, 95 student branches, and I'll get to that number later.
7?
And
I thought we
96, I think.
oh,
We just, what's the name,
the Northwest Nazarene University student branch.
oh yes, I forgot to. You wrote me, and I forgot to add. I was gonna. Has it gotten official, or is it all?
It is official.
Oh well.
Hey.
Feel free to edit my slide.
Just did.
Okay. So this was the big news at the board meeting, aside from the other big news that I already told you about. This is the IEEE 2030 initiative. So when I
Now we're
became
going back to the part that's going to make us go slow.
a director, when I became director-elect, which was after the election but before January, I was director-elect, and they said, because you're director-elect, you should go to the November board meeting. So I went to the November board meetings to learn how these things go, and then I say, hey, there's this meeting in January in Puerto Rico. And they said, oh, you don't go to that. So, okay, fine. And so, but but they were
Get back to
actually
the kids' table.
really, yeah, I was back at the kids' table. So they
Yeah,
were really-
but I hear the kids get to go to Panama.
Yeah.
The kids
Oh,
go to
right,
Panama.
kids are going to
I
Panama.
would go to Panama.
And they got the young professionals,
Oh,
the
yeah,
YP
the
thing.
real kids go to
Are
Panama.
going to Panama.
Yeah, well, so they got together and said, they need to do a major new strategic plan for IEEE. And this was the current board directors, so Mike Andrews and Tom Coughlin were there. The management council selected guests in order to make sure you're representing the YPs and people like that. And the 2015 and 2016 IEEE presidents, so the recently elected to President-elect Barry Shoup and our current president, somebody help me?
Is
Oh,
it Jim
I-
Jeffries?
No,
No,
that's
no,
IEEE USA.
That's USA, yes.
That's right.
I visualized the
Nichols?
face, no.
No.
Yeah,
Nichols,
Meg.
look it up.
Yeah, well.
Okay, well, I'm glad. All right, so the driving question was what changes we need to make now to best position IEEE for success in 2030. And there were some groups that were very dismayed that they went to Puerto Rico and they really had to be in meetings 12 hours a day for 3 days. And so the IEEE 2030 committee did this high-level roadmap with 4 things, and the draft plan needs to be developed by this ad hoc committee with milestones, owners, and budgets. And so for each of 4 strategic objectives, which I didn't mention on the last slide because they're here that you can see horizontally instead of sideways. And the significant progress will be driven by this ad hoc committee for 1 and 2. Create a nimble, flexible, forward-looking organization, and foster public imperatives. Substantial work will be adopted by logical home organizational units for items 3, which is foster diverse technical communities with industry, government, and academia, and empower the discovery, development, and delivery of cutting-edge products and services. Tom Coughlin is not here today because he is at West Point with Barry Shoup doing exactly that. And
Howard and Michael.
thank you.
Yeah, and then you
I
had
think it's
Nickel, it was,
Michelle. I think it's
or
Michelle.
Michelle,
I
whichever.
think it's Michelle's. I think that's why it is. Okay. So in terms of Region 6 initiatives that are not unrelated to this, but so our Region 6 objectives for 2015, respect and enable the volunteer, enhance membership and improve retention, enhance our online experience, create active alliances with industry and VCs, create active alliances with academia.
PCs.
I'm assuming he means venture capitalists.
Yep.
Yeah,
But-
that's what he meant.
But he didn't,
Really?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Create active alliances with technically oriented cultural groups and STEM, recognize and celebrate our history, and make IEEE Region 6 cool and be creative.
I actually like his better than the,
Yeah, so you
and
can
then,
tell that last
you
one
go
is
back
really
and
good.
just roll up IEEEs and your eyes roll into your back of your head. It's like,
So,
it's crap.
So particular initiatives with these goals are recruitment of members that are in arrears and membership recognition, the Region 6 conferences, online conferences, chapter meeting recording, program management for Region 6 activities, creating the alliances, and appointing in Region 6 IEEE Engineering Milestone Coordinator. I have more on all these later. So this is this main chart.
Yeah, and before you go away on this,
Okay.
since everybody,
Okay.
the next one's perfect for it.
Okay.
You're probably going to mention this, but the kill software runs in February.
Right,
So-
I'm about to mention it.
Okay, I'll wait till
Okay.
you say it.
All right, so you can see 2002 was the peak of our lives. And there we were, and the trend has been kind of consistent since 2002. And the leadership and everybody in this room, I think, recognize that this is not great. This is a problem. So,
You see part of the problem right here. I mean, I'm the most gray, and then it goes downhill from there. But the fact is we're all, the reality of IEEE is, at least in Region 6 and in most of the United States, I think we're aging. And part of the reason we're aging is because a lot of the products that we used to do here are being done elsewhere, and so there are only a few places where we actually have a growth industry for science and engineering. I mean, it becomes DoD is about the only thing that you can point to that really has, and the reason we do is because it's classified. you know, and
Well-
you can't go anywhere else.
There has, from a workforce point of view, been an increase in tech, but they're not staying or
In
joining
IEEE.
IEEE.
Yeah.
So there's some of what you're saying, but there's also
Okay,
sometimes the problem might be us. And so, as you were hoping I would mention,
yes,
the February 2015, at the end of February, they
There's
terminated the
been two
membership of those people that did not pay.
Yep.
Because the membership year ended December 31st. And, whoops.
Yep.
And so, Tom began a micro volunteer program where he sent notes to those people he knew of as leaders in the region to get you to sign up. And make,
Is that why?
yeah.
I got an email.
Yeah, I got the
on the
email, I
website, too.
didn't know how broadly he sent it, so
Yeah,
is it just
exactly.
to the
Well,
the
I think
leaders,
You actually
or-
open it up to everyone.
That's
Even
what I
the
thought.
Region 6 website, there's like promotions and it's right there. And
Right.
anyone can sign up.
So he put it up on the website, but he sent what he wanted you to see as a pretty individualized message to get you involved. And he had 50 people sign up to do this, and everybody that's reported back to him has reported that they get a very high rate of response to this. Guess what the number is of those who get cut off in February? What % of last year's members? Take a guess.
3%?
How much?
3%?
oh, no,
Guess again, higher.
more like 20,
Guess again, higher.
higher,
20?
26.
26.
26. Now,
Wow.
many of those 26 will come back. They're just waiting till they get cut off their benefits and till they are in arrears, and then they're about to join back.
And then they
But a
also have
certain
the chance,
percentage-
if they wait till 6 months out, then they get to have a price.
No,
No, they
They
don't.
don't?
No, they don't.
because then you create that incentive
Okay,
to do that. So it's only for new members
new members only.
that works.
Let's
And-
see, I
and
think
that's-
if they're lapsed like 3 years or more, then they can come back and get the
Come back
discount
as
again.
new, okay.
All right, so he wants you to sign up, and so people have been happily doing it. Another initiative, Elevation, not in a spiritual sense.
Yeah.
And so we have associate to member elevation. So associate members kind of have the worst of all worlds. So associate members pay full freight, and they get no voting rights, and they have less privileges. And so if you have any associate members in your section who have been associate members for a while,
What causes that? What's his status? that-
Criteria.
well,
You-
so what?
Criteria.
Well,
You have a-
sometimes you have, and this
Yes.
happened to some of my students. When I joined University of San Diego, we were a new program. You can't get accredited until after you have graduates.
Okay,
And then the accreditation comes in later. Like, it can be retroactive and applies to all graduates often.
so like
But
the
from
Weaver
IEEE's
guys.
point of view, the student branch was
And then
formed
you.
before it was accredited. So every student that graduated, and then even those that transitioned to member, had that little A on their name. So that can
Really?
happen, yes. The typical profile of an associate member is somebody who's like, say, a medical doctor that's interested in EMBS and wants to hang out with the techies and joins in that way. That's what it's intended for. But oftentimes you have people that should not know, at least now should no longer be associate members. So take a look at your member roster, and if you have longtime associate members, check them out. And very likely you should be able to get them elevated to a real member that can vote and has the rights that they should have.
So what are the ones that, I mean, what are the criteria that people get elevated? Because I know the other reason for associates because
Non-technical,
non-technical.
right.
And are those able to be elevated?
So if they are truly non-technical, you can't elevate them.
Okay.
But people that are like if they've been associate members for a few years, what have they been doing? Is it really non-technical?
Well, a lot of times it's people who got recruited,
Right.
to start with.
But they had to renew. So they had to keep renewing. They renewed for a few years. They're worth
They're
a
doing
little-
it for a reason.
Yeah, they're doing it for a reason, and so that might mean that they're working in the field for a reason. And you might have good, you are
You may have a
likely,
case.
not certain, to have good reason to elevate them. And it's paperwork. So a senior member elevations. So senior members, 10 years, and you get, I think it's 4 years credit for your degree.
Yeah,
So anybody that's no longer technically a YP is almost certain to be.
you can be a YP in.
Yeah, and no, I mean, but even if they're no longer a YP, and they've had a job most of that time, you can make a case for them to be a senior member. Any section that has a life member group.
Yeah, so
So you look in San Diego, we have a large life member group, but only half of them are senior members. Come on. So last year I helped to elevate 3 people. And so, and I found when I wrote to, like I run my ASS chapter and I wrote out to my membership like an end of the year thing and I got a note back, oh, thank you. You know, I've been meaning to be a senior member and it was some life member. And so of course he's very eligible. And so, I mean, Dan, you talked about it at the last Northeast area meeting I was at, that you have a system, but every section should have a program.
She does.
And anybody, any senior members, they don't drop off the roster.
Yep.
And so it's a win-win for everybody. And then the senior member is recognized and you keep more members in your section. And then we need programs to encourage students to become full IEEE members. I have more slides on this later. And you notice my lack of great idea on this. So I'm waiting for your brilliant leadership, people in this room, because this is the big area.
What is this? Is it something like number of years?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And so, does anybody have one?
No.
See?
I've never had a look. No,
They handed them out at Sections Congress last year.
Oh, well, I wasn't in Afghanistan.
So for what is it? So I think what is it for $15 or so? You can go order one from the IEEE store.
Yep, I'm sure that's.
I think
Yeah.
they
Well, so-
we talked about
this
this in the
I
section.
think.
Yeah.
So you can order these pins for people in your section
Yeah,
and
orders
give
and
them out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share these slides with us.
In fact, yeah.
Yeah, I have them. So yeah,
Can you
I'll
email
make
them
sure
to
the
the
minute get out.
local list?
Or when we update the website, if we do that in the near future, I can post them there.
Oh, yeah.
Save me writing it
As soon as
Yeah.
Elise
So-
gets back, we'll
So
look at it.
I bequeath my slides to be sent out to your list.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that'll work.
Okay. So the other initiative, create an online collection of technical chapter meeting recordings. As we've noted today, there's steps in the process to be taken. But this was a major issue. It's a major initiative. Notice they see IEEE Initiative Committee. This is board level committee, where they said Region 6 and Region 4, because as you know, we're buddies with them. Region 6 and Region 4 are doing this, and everybody else is looking to us about this. And so I think we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. So Tom's big issue right now is he's trying to figure out the online piece of that. But we want to have something to show by the fall board meeting. That's our deadline. And so how this is a great idea, but we're still more at the hope and plan stage than, I haven't seen the recordings yet. Whoops, sorry.
Oh, with any luck, you'll get to see your own.
There you go. Uh-oh.
We're doing it as we speak.
Other initiatives, project management tool, reported Karen Day to be for project management, so she's observing how things are happening, and so we could be getting some tools from that. And then this, I think Chris was asking me about, so this is as much as I have on that, and so basically they want you to do that, and they have money that they're happy to support those efforts. And so in Santa Clara Valley section, which by the way is the largest section in the world, so I don't think your bar should be 30 companies participating. If you have breakfast with one, I think you're doing pretty well. If you have breakfast with 5, to me that's a board meeting. And then we are seeking IEEE engineering milestones in Region 6, and so I'm assuming like me, you read this and say, what? What is that? Because that's what I said, what is that? And so what he means is historical milestones. And so they had an initiative in Central area related to this. And so you have, museums recognizing major events in history, recent history, related to technology that, help celebrate and make people more aware of IEEE. And there's a person in charge of that. So in terms of students, this is another major initiative.
By the way, he's pretty good about the convenience on that, Brian Burke. I sent him a note. We have, Philo Farnsworth is an Idaho
Yes.
slash
Yes.
Utah boy, and so we sent a couple of notes on that, and they're doing something. I can't remember. It may have already been done. I have the deal. I had like 6 of them, but Philo was the one I'm thinking of right now. Don't remember the status, but they were certainly going to have him in the list.
Well, and there are, there's ongoing supported interest in this. And so if you have somebody that's interested in this, or you have,
But they're actually putting up, they're
Yeah.
literally putting up these cool plaques. Like, I don't know if you remember, I think the last time it was done was back when IEEE's president was, what's the guy in Utah's name?
Oh, Cleon.
Cleon. And he went all over the world putting up these plaques for different things, like Russian radar was invented here.
Very good.
And so, and they're doing the same thing. They've got a couple of plaques in Santa Clara all over the place.
And so here, next initiative, students. So this chart should be even more depressing.
This is
Yeah.
terrible.
Yep.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So that green line, the green bottom line is the students.
Is this overall IEEE or
Back up.
Overall
version six?
IEEE.
What does that mean?
So
What does
this
it
is
mean?
year-over-year retention.
So in this year in '99 we kept 70%. Last year
From
we
one year to
kept
the next.
from 1 year to the next. Last year is 30. Yeah, well, I was one of those guys that's on this side.
So
So-
in an ideal world, students are in 4-year programs, and you're going to only retain
Maybe a third of them?
So no, but
So
no,
this
but like
So
as student
is
members.
this retention from when they would normally transition from student to higher grade membership, or is it
This
year over year
is-
from student to
This is
student
the
membership?
green line is year-over-year from students.
Does that include graduate student or just?
Just
It
really
includes
all
graduate
of it.
students, and I believe it includes transitioning to members.
Okay,
I don't want to swear up and down, but look, the numbers are so bad, it doesn't matter.
well, I'm wondering if it's even, yeah, you're right, but I was wondering if it's even worse for students transitioning to full member.
Oh, yes, well, this,
Because
so
that's when the barrier
So
is.
they're not going to transition to full members if they're not members, not student members to
Right,
begin with.
right.
And so,
Interesting thing, I happen to be working with Nancy Osteen on doing HKN. And they're saying that those who are inducted into EduCap are almost 70% retention.
so now, see,
it's
there's an
There's
idea.
a key.
There's an idea. See,
Yeah.
like what I said, we need some ideas
Yeah,
of the
this is
students transitioning
And
to
so
full
we're
members.
fixing the U of U one, and that one's going well. They're resurrecting from the dust, and will be a phoenix there. But we have another, now 7 schools among us that do not have HKN. So I'll give you targets. I thought it was kind of a fun thing. Worked out really easy. I was surprised. I know John Lucas, so I sent him an email, and he said, "Oh, I've got this really cool assistant professor. He'll take good care of you," and he has.
And
Boom, boom.
I
And
think
Nancy Osteen
it
has made
solves,
it easy.
it brings up, it's an interesting solution in that where Tom said, Region 6, be cool, be creative.
Mhm.
And so by associating it with an honor society, it's kind of cool.
Well, not
Yeah,
only
so
that,
that's-
it builds
yeah.
builds the kid's resume, so he has
Yeah.
something to put on it on the way out. And at this case, they couldn't, right now, for Pejan, she could not have put that on her resume because at that time, when she graduated, the HKN Society was defunct at U of U. And so it's just now coming back to life.
Yes.
We-
Well,
But she can be in, they actually can bring you in now if you'd like.
right.
Speaking from having had that done last year.
Yeah.
Am I going to contribute for last that? Sure.
So, but you can see from 1999, where it was 69, to last year, it was only 39.
39%. That's awful.
The year-over-year retention of student members.
And I fell out twice.
So-
I dropped out twice, and then it was 20 years before I resurrected.
Okay, that's
So
not so bad
this
either.
indicates a crisis with our students, no question.
Well, and from those of us that are getting old enough to think that maybe life is in our future, because you don't get, since you're not paying when it's cheap as
Yeah.
a student, I'll be paying full dues until I'm like 75.
Right.
You know, and so I can't remember what the math is, but it's like your
Years
age
of
plus
member plus your age.
your years of member plus an age.
Has to be 100, but now that it also has to be your age is at least 65.
Yeah.
Well, are there
10
statistics on
years.
how
So
that changed
what
long
I
ago?
think they ought to
Few more
do to
years.
be a fundraiser, they ought to let us buy years while we are still able to have an income.
There you
And when
go.
I go on to Social Security, I'm not going to be paying my dues.
Well, yeah, but then you'll hopefully be eligible to be a life member then.
At 70, I hope I'd go on Social Security before 75.
What was your question, Randy?
Well, I was going to comment, when I was a student and transitioned to full membership, they used to have the program then that, it was like a 3 or 4 years
Right.
before you paid the full member
Right.
dues. It was a slow transition, and then at some point that
Cook
just
the
changed
frog
to, well,
is
you
what
get
you're
1 year
saying.
at 50%,
Yeah, exactly.
and
I
No.
haven't.
then, what are the stats on
I don't
how
know
that
the stats
changed?
off the top of my head, but what they observed was that it didn't work at all. In the sense that they were,
It didn't make a big
basically,
difference.
the
Retention.
basically they dropped, those members were not retained better
Okay,
than the other way.
okay.
So here, this was not presented in this way, but a big discussion at the board in terms of member and geographic activities was one of the professional staff looked at the numbers in terms of student branch support financially and said that 3/4 of the money that was supporting student branches was coming from the sections. And 1/4 was coming from IEEE because students don't get their rebates. And he had these numbers and I'm like, hey, and he didn't put it in a percentage, but hey, do the math, Region 6 is number 1. So
That's where that email came from.
yes, so I generated that email to every section chair and said, hey, this is where you are, and I had to look up, and so first of all, Tom, Mike, and I looked at each other and said, 95? We have 95 student branches? Because if you look at the Region 6 webpage, they're not listed there.
Okay.
And
That's
then,
actually a point, isn't it?
and not only is that a point, but like earlier, there was the slide that said how many sections we have and all that. That slide, until I had Tom change it, said we had 90. And so that just got changed the other day.
Well, and I think the 90 is really right, and we're going to show you about that in a minute.
Right.
I'm going to point to 4.
Yeah, but that needs to get fixed. So in order to get the rebate, students have to report their officers and they have to report their activities. Sections report activities with L31s, which take a while to do.
They actually don't report
Sure.
through L31.
Right.
They
It's actually
Students.
tools.
Yeah, so students have a special reporting where all they have to report is how many meetings they had in a month. It literally takes 60 seconds to fill in this report. And you could, and I have, just put your best guess of how many meetings you had a month. You just have to do the report. What IEEE headquarters does is they generated a list, and it's on the IEEE webpage that anybody can get to without login, I think. And it looks pretty nice, it's well formatted, and it shows section by section what student branch, the latest chair and the latest branch counselor that they have, and when that was reported. So,
That's cool.
based on that, that's where you got an email from me. And I assumed that if the officer was last reported more than a year or so ago, that they did not report their officer because it's students and it's supposed to change every year. And in many cases, the last report was 2003, 2009. 2011. So that person is no longer the branch chair. The counselor could have been the same for many years. Yeah, that could certainly happen. And then I wrote to every single one of you that are section chairs. You must remember my email, right?
Yes, I do.
And gave you your status. Now, so the blue is my best estimate of whether this branch got its rebate, because I'm certain you didn't if you didn't have a report for a long time.
And in a few cases, this is to my point, this
Yeah.
program no longer exists at BYU.
And so, yeah,
So
that's
they
what
have no longer got a student branch.
so that's what I
Really.
want to know.
So how do we kill that one?
Well, so I want to know that, and I'm going to write to somebody and try to figure out how we
I
can do that.
thought the
But that
BYU
one's-
program has been off, because if you look it up.
No, BYU Provo
No, no,
has a
the
double E
BYU
for their
one.
ECE. ECE, this is the ECE one.
Right,
And it's still very viable. But
right.
this particular educational program, electrical engineering technology, no longer exists at BYU. In fact, EET status for it, there's only one EET program west of the Mississippi in a public or private school. All of the of them are in commercial schools, except for Weber State. Now, Weber
Well,
State's program.
ASU East.
ASU East, I don't think so. I went back and, reason I know it is because we were making a case with the Secretary of the Air Force
Uh-huh,
as to why we wanted to retain
right.
Weber State as a source of supply for for engineering, and they were at that time, they did not claim an ABET accredited TAC program.
Okay.
So the end result was BYU at that time had done away with theirs about 8 years ago, maybe more. And so this program, I know, does not exist anymore.
Okay, well, so I'd rather not have them on our list, hurting our staff.
Because all it does is hurt us, exactly.
Right. And so I wrote in order alphabetically by section. So, and immediately, like Elisa knows what's going on at Boise State. And so she wrote me back like that, like, I told them to report.
Yes, she did. There was an immediate slap up the side of the head.
So Boise State, they're not in blue, but they will be in blue.
Oh,
Any
shortly
minute
they'll be.
now.
It isn't coming, you know.
Right.
There's,
Right.
you have to Lisa, she's coming back. You might want to do
And
this.
Montana State Northern might be like the EET program.
Yeah, this
that
one
you
here is
had.
the same story.
Same story.
Same story, and I think that, yeah, that was
We have a
one.
new one on that too.
And it was actually a EET program as
But
well.
they aren't
But
on
now it's
the-
interesting,
No,
that
no,
they
yeah, they're
have
not.
a computer science program. So they could have a EET, they could have an IEEE,
They could.
but
You have
as
to
far
have
as I
somebody
know,
that's championing
they
it.
don't.
You have to have some network. So right
And-
now, they don't have any.
But we also, at the same time, in Idaho, are resurrecting, we have a brand new, in this case, the Nazarene Church.
Okay, so and I should
You don't
have
have
added,
that yet.
no, but you told me and I meant to add it and
It's all
because it
good.
wasn't on any of, oh, did
No.
I add it?
No, it's all good. You don't
Okay.
just, now, I know full well that the Idaho State one exists. I know the chair, I know
And there's members.
and there's members.
Yeah.
Is he just not reporting?
Well, I don't know, because I forwarded your email to Ron and Jean and said, the
Exactly.
whole XCOM, and I said,
Gene
especially
Stubble,
Gene.
especially,
Yeah.
when,
so I'll
I'm
be
surprised,
checking with them when I get
Yeah.
back.
surprised it's
See,
not
trust
blue
me.
already.
So this is my goal, is that, part of the proposal going on at the board level was that this rate of rebates from the students, it's not the $100 of whether the students get the $100 or not. It's a reflection of a lack of communication going on.
Yeah.
And a lack of connection.
And in
and
some
so-
cases, they don't know where the website is.
Yeah, well, students transition and
Yep.
they, all it takes is one bad transition.
You got a whole lot of entropy
Right.
going on there.
One thing I want to mention about our student report was we did push a lot last year for Utah section.
Yeah, you see, you sure did.
We are like 25% of your overall state like,
Yeah.
by about 20. One thing is really hard for them was this is only allowed the chair to
No.
submit a report.
No.
No, it was the case.
No, So I reported, so I happened to look in it, and by coincidence, a certain person who was the branch counselor at my university was asked by the students, oh, what should we do about this? And the person's response was, oh, just go talk to Dr. Kramer. She'll be your branch counselor. And so I became the branch counselor because I need that validation in my life that I became the branch counselor for my own university, and I was on this list. And so I went in and fixed it.
No,
Fix it
the
yourself.
principal could do it, but as from the student side, only the student chair could do it.
No. So I went in and I was, but the person told the students, oh, she's your branch counselor, but I was not the branch counselor. So I went in without being the branch counselor and I changed it. And what it said is, you're not allowed to change.
Right.
But we're gonna have the staff check because you did it and you're not, because you're a person who's not the person we're expecting to do it. We're gonna have a staff person take care of this and check on it, and they had it done within a day.
Oh, okay.
So I thought that was pretty smart. Because it's always gonna be, like 80% of them are gonna be wrong. And so, I thought that was really nice that they took it and they said they'd have a person look at it, and then shortly there, not immediately, but within a day or so, it was done.
Can you go back to that one
Yeah.
just one more time
Yeah.
before?
Yeah,
On
there's
Montana Tech, I was interesting, is that in your area or?
Yeah, they're,
Do we know if they have a program still?
well, they
I sent you a number.
they do, and I've,
What kind of program is it?
well, they have a double E program there.
Okay, so it is a double E program.
Before it was a general engineering with an electrical option, but now they have a full-blown double E.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
And they've always kind of done things a little different. I kind of was talking to them a little bit more about, they consider themselves an IEEE or an electrical engineering club with IEEE members. And
Yeah.
And they encourage,
Well,
they
then
encourage their
Boise
students
kind of
to
talks about
register
themselves as
their
a
way.
club too.
Yeah, there's a lot of the student branches that do that.
They consider themselves clubs. We count them branches. Potato.
Oh, one more
Yeah.
correction. As much as we'd love to have them in the northeast area, the Palouse section, I believe, is in the northwest area.
Yeah.
They were listed.
Yeah, they're not in the northeast.
Oh, okay.
Physically, they're part of that part that's cut off on the top.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. They're on other people's lists as being in the Northeast. Yeah, so I didn't make
No.
that up.
I think Sean would,
Yeah.
since he.
I went to
mentioned some
WSU. Yeah, I went to
Okay,
WSU.
so,
we're definitely.
So I'm glad you're
Yep.
correcting me on that, but there are several area lists that have Palouse on that in your area.
I wouldn't mind having.
We'll be
you
happy
and
to
it's
change
all that
that.
wonderful
We're
map
back to that
that you showed
geography
earlier.
issue.
Okay.
Well, the next question is, let me ask a logical one while
Yeah.
we're here. We're trying to make some geography changes when we come to our northeast area and southwest.
Yeah.
And part of the reason we did that was because we were the ones that were affected. But if there are other ones, and if there's some rational reason that this would be, that particular area
Yeah.
would be more associated with the Idaho side than there, we ought to talk about it.
Yeah,
You know.
I think it makes sense to pull in probably the Palouse section and maybe the Spokane section into the northeast area, because just geographically those seem.
They're isolated from the other
Yeah,
side.
they're
and that's
isolated
actually
from
always
Seattle.
They
been.
never go to Seattle,
Yeah,
right?
they
So
might
we
come
should have
here.
talked
Yeah.
about when we did the other
Because so many
combined.
people
Last time we
have
had
ties
with,
to Boise.
Yeah.
with, it was
Well,
northeast
was
northwest.
He would go there
runs
for
Palouse,
school
were they
from
there?
here and back and forth.
I don't recall.
Yeah,
The northeast
so they would
northwest,
naturally
that's a
come back
question.
here.
We'll go off and talk, I'll send a note over to
They might
Northwest
want
and
to
say, look, we're doing some geography talks.
Or Utah.
And then, and this one's one that's kind of isolated from y'all, and if you want to keep it great, but
Well, and I
it's,
think, like, if you look at,
you go back to that map.
I
that
think
we
on that
hate.
map,
You go to the
Did I
map,
miss it?
no, you're going further back.
Yeah,
There.
but
See, this
yeah,
shows
we already
it
know that
way,
map.
Yeah.
and they would be
It's
right on the
messed up.
line,
Yeah,
right
Palouse
there.
to the left.
But really, it actually cuts off across the panhandle right in
Yeah,
there.
right around Grangefield, it cuts off there.
Yeah, and that's where we cut. And really, that one comes over here. And
That
again,
map,
that's
that's
all.
all.
so I really really need somebody to do a map, please.
But it's part of the reason that you have problems is
Yeah.
this stupid map.
It's horrible.
This stupid map makes it where people think, oh, half of Utah belongs to
Yeah.
Las Vegas. Well, it
Yeah.
doesn't.
No.
It's like,
All right,
you
but
know, one
I'm
county.
I think let's try to move Palouse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, if it makes sense.
Yeah.
I want to
Yeah.
make sure that they think it makes sense.
All
I
right.
believe
Well,
I
plus,
know we're pretty
plus if we move
confident that the
Spokane, then we
Oakland
get
people
Keith
in,
Grislack
St.
in our
George.
area too.
I would be up for that.
So, bottom line is, I think that 20% is ridiculous and not serving the students. And look at you, Northeast area.
You're doing great.
Well, no, not so
And
much.
so I
Percentage.
definitely, it should be
This one here is
80-20, not
wrong.
20-80.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and so, I can't edit it right now, but I will.
Yeah,
So here's,
sorry,
yeah.
another thing is.
No, when I say it's wrong,
Yeah.
it's probably right.
Yeah.
I just am saying, I know the people that are doing this and they're active with their student branch. So the fact that you're not getting a report that says they're active, that's a wrong, we're not getting the right pulse to you.
Well, the other thing is, maybe this is more feedback back to the IEEE headquarters is, I just pull out the IEEE student branch like the list for the entire Region 6,
Uh-huh.
and some of the officers' names were really old.
Yeah.
However, when I go into the student officer reporting, it was all reported correctly. So it was
Right,
something
which-
in their data. So for example, Weaver State here, last year
Yeah.
was 2013.
Yeah.
But and this data it says it's September 2014.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to officer reporting, if I do Weaver.
Yeah.
In May last year, they already changed it. So it should pull the right information, not, however they pull this automatic, they pull the
Right.
wrong data.
They pull it in September, and so,
Yeah, but.
yeah, I
officer-
have had the Sammy guy on, so I agree.
There's
So-
some
Yeah.
Yeah.
synchronization
But
issues.
I think we could easily get up to 80-20 instead of 20-80.
Yeah.
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 So here in contrast is Northwest, and except we apparently should move Palouse over.
Close to, yeah.
Yeah, and so, but look at them compared to you.
Okay. Well, but they've got a lot more too.
Yeah?
The next question is I wonder how many of them really exist. Just a minute. Did you, Pip?
The ones who won the award.
Oh, sure enough.
Yeah.
So,
You can
by
blame-
definition, they're active.
Mike on
I
that.
mean,
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, we gave them student branch of the year.
Wow.
There's something really serious
getting
There, maybe you ought to just post the picture right beside this. That was,
Oh,
there is something
yeah.
that's terrible irony right
Well,
now.
so I think there's something funky
Yeah.
with the DigiPen because they were only founded in fall of 13. And so, because they're new in the system, there might be something up with that.
Okay,
Or it's really bad and it's exactly what it looks like, which is that we're giving an award to outstanding student branch to a branch that's not reporting.
well,
So,
they certainly are doing things. I
yeah,
mean,
they're doing a lot.
The reality of it is, again, I'm not, some of this stuff, maybe the reporting process is such that it just doesn't get the right pulse.
Yeah, well, so the pending proposal, which Tom Coughlin tried to get us to vote on, even though the guy said, well, I'm not ready to propose it, was that instead of reporting to headquarters, they want the student branches to report to the sections. And
That's actually kind of cool.
and so we
And
are,
we won't give them their money unless they report to us.
well, and just that,
We'll take their money.
both ways, that you want, so that sections that are doing everything that they should be doing, keep doing that, and just to have it on your radar, that you own these branches in a sense. You
Well,
own
and we've
them.
had branches go
Yeah.
south. I mean,
Right.
even the U of U, for example, a couple of years ago, their advisor, who had been the advisor since Dirk died,
Mhm.
and when he was ill, the branch itself didn't have any leadership for almost 2 years.
Right.
And so the kids came to the training class and said, we'd kind of like to have a advisor. So I actually sent a note over there, and at the time, John Luca had my email on delete before read. And so I got tired of it. I tried several times, and then I assigned a new branch advisor. We took it upon ourselves as the section to assign it. And we assigned them from the mechanical engineering department. Which is also legal, moral. She was an
She's an IEEE
IEEE member, active,
Yeah.
doing biomedical stuff, and was a senior member of the IEEE and very active. And so we assigned her, and it was interesting. I got a call from John Lipton. And about 3 months later, we gave him a new chair of his own choice. But the guy still sucks. He
Yeah.
just hasn't really ever gotten serious about doing anything.
Well, so you look
But at least they're keeping their
there's
records
no
up.
question that the branch counselor is very important. There's no question that that's important. And
That's
so Seattle, look at how many student branches they have to worry about
Yeah.
in Seattle. So if you're a really big section with a lot of student branches, you might need a lot more than just one person looking at student activities.
Well, and Pejong has got
Yeah.
this really good person who keeps up with all of the the branches, and that's his job. Gosh, he does a good job. And certainly a lot better than anything I ever had.
So, all right, so in addition to this, so improve section relations with their student branches, and that's relating to that. Improve effectiveness of area meetings for student members. So at this area meeting, we don't even have students, right? And that's a reflection of the competition becoming less relevant.
Well, that, and we've actually asked, what are the profiles for these meetings?
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten squat out of y'all.
Mhm.
Because we don't know what the profile is. Even some of the others are retaining those competitions. Some of the others, and at one point, Mike had said, we're not going to do these anymore. So Elisa, being somebody who salutes,
Mhm.
stopped. Now, last I looked, San Diego still does Micro Mouse.
So
And
last
so
year,
does
yeah.
others, you know?
Last year,
And we could.
because I was a candidate, they said, as your candidate for director-elect, you go to the area meetings and you, I guess you have your, I don't know, what is it, campaign style, you campaign
You
at the
stop.
area meetings. And so what I did was I volunteered to do something for the student competition at each of the area meetings
Mhm.
that I went to.
And we didn't have one.
You didn't have one, so I didn't have it. So, but
You're
I think,
welcome here
if
anyway.
you remember what I said, like you might remember what I said. If you need any help with something, I'm happy to help.
Mhm.
And for the Southwest area, which is my home area, they said, oh, okay, you're the coordinator. And for the Northwest area, they said, we don't need you. We have the students come in the afternoon, and you come first. Like we have like sort of this meeting first, and then students are later. And for Central, I had to be the judge
Mhm.
on a panel of their design competition. And for Southern, I had to be the judge of their design competition. Being the coordinator is harder because you have to find all the judges and recruit students to join. And what I observed was all the reasons that we don't have one here right now, which is that, so Southwest area, and I'm the coordinator, and I think we have 15 or 16 student branches in our area, Southwest area. Guess how many entries we had?
One?
3.
Oh, okay.
And one of them was mine, because
Okay.
I was a coordinator, so you think I'm not gonna have one.
Mhm. So you had 30% of the,
Well, but, so one was the institution hosting the meeting, one was me, the coordinator of the competition, and one was submitted over dinner the night before. And that
What are
was
the different competition that?
well, so there was an original region-wide, what I believe was the region-wide competition, and there's rules posted at the region level of this student. They call it a student paper competition, but it's really a student paper and presentation competition.
Mhm.
And this, and Larry Hammerman, past region director,
Mhm.
he will give you a very nice lecture on the value of this competition at the drop of a hat. And then this was complemented by Micro Mouse. So you do, but to my eye, neither has been at all effective. I observed in Central, they had both Micro Mouse and design competition. Their design was a poster, and no paper, and poster, and it was really used by Cal State Chico and University of Nevada, Reno, both very isolated schools, as like a place where they could go, get somebody to look at them. Synergy, and then nobody else of all these many other student branches, the host institution, participated. And then.
Well, and you got like, University of Utah's always had the paper in the presentation
Well, I
project.
think
So
part
it
of
once
the
a year.
student competition is it has to be somehow integrated into the course
Yes.
for the university.
Yes.
So that's
And-
why paper competition naturally become an appealing because they have to do the work. They as well just.
Yeah, and so I agree with you completely. And so that was, so with Southwest, I told our Southwest area, I said, nope, I'm exerting my authority that I don't technically have. And I'm telling you, you can't have that competition and you have to have a different competition. And almost all the students that are in capstone have to do a poster, tell them it's a poster, tell them to use their capstone poster. And so we're doing something different. Central's going for a hackathon type
How many people
approach.
try out for it? How many
Yeah, don't
students?
use that word with Dan.
Okay,
Well,
well,
problem for DOD.
I,
Just the name.
so basically, what I'm contending is that we have an initiative that we're trying to respond to what I see as a problem, and that it's been completely uninteresting and unappealing and accomplishing nothing but a lot of work and frustration for us as volunteers, the way it's been currently conceived. And that if you're going to have a competition, it should get at least a third of your student branches interesting, and there ought to be some reasonable reward involved.
Can you back up, go
Yeah.
to the student branches for us? Now, when you start looking at the student branches, you know, UVU is their CS and IT department. Weber State, they have two departments involved, the EET, as I said, there is one EET program, and their EE, they now have an ABET-EAC accredited EE program. So you've got these, but they have never had the same requirement that the University of Utah has had for a paper and presentation.
Right.
And that has been long-standing for at least
think
20
we
years
were
that I can
changing
think
it
of.
To do a poster now.
Yeah. But-
So, yeah, I would contend that the paper, so I'm teaching senior design actually, and I require a paper,
Mhm.
but nowadays, almost 100% of senior design in the nation, if not the world, is team. And that paper competition was conceived as an individual paper.
Yep, you're
There's no
exactly
rule
right.
that says it has to be, but it really is.
Right.
And the paper, the final paper of the final project is not written and turned in until the end.
Yeah. I
And
know.
so, and here
So
we are in March.
something's wrong.
So a poster is a better way to go.
And it was interesting because, like I said, I've been a judge for the Utah one about University of Utah for the last 5 or 6 years. And they've gone away from having
Yeah.
a paper, but it's just now the presentation.
So almost every
So-
university, particularly a larger university, has posters required for something. And this is for a variety of issues and interests, not just senior capstone, not just IEEE. But we can leverage off of that. People are printing the posters anyway. They have the posters ready to go,
Mhm.
and it could make your meeting more interesting. So this is an initiative, and so I in particular would welcome if Dan, maybe you could assign somebody from your area
Sure.
to be in charge of working with me on this.
And what we really want to do is
In fact, that-
obviously go to these guys in their departments and say, what do y'all think? You know, here's our, because we've got to get consensus for all practical purposes. And if we can get 50% consensus, we actually might have a pretty cool event that would be associated with this meeting once a year.
Yeah.
Or maybe by next year, so Chris can have something to
Yeah, well,
write
in
about.
fact, that was part of the reason that we put student activities as a topic on the agenda this afternoon, was to discuss what we could do in future areas.
So this time that you're eating up, we'll take away from you.
Okay,
So-
yeah, so I'm totally, I've like tripled my time, so.
It's all
You
good.
guys can give me the hook at any time.
You know?
Okay.
No, this is worth it.
All right, so we have I'll mention these others later. So conferences. So at the board meeting, Tom had me play Vanna White and hand these out on people's board seats. And I didn't have enough people to hand them out to, so I'm handing them out to you. And so Region 6 was definitely a rising star, pun intended.
Thank you.
Because we had stuff.
We had these little
Yeah.
bookmark things, and they're largely emphasizing Region 6 conferences, not the least of which is SUSTEC. And so we have, whoops. So Women in Engineering International Leadership Conference. So this was a tremendous success that required almost no effort on the part of anybody in this room. So Jennifer, Beijing, Ray, maybe you could go.
Actually, I'm going.
Are you going? I'll see you there. So really, this was a Women in Engineering affinity group event, but Region 6 said, "We'll, put us in on that." I think we might have given them like a loan, and we didn't even actually give them money. And they had a stretch goal of 150, and they ended up with like, I'm going to say 270 at the event last year for the first time. There was a lot of consternation at the IEEE board meeting from particularly Region 8 that, well, why is this in Region 6? And so it's because Region 6 is cool and creative, that's why. And so this career...
created it?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
The Career and Talent Expo is a brainchild of Mike Andrews, and so I have some slides on it from him. And SUSTEC, you guys all know about. GHTC, due to my recent election, I'm on conference calls every other Monday for GHTC. Abstract submittal date is coming up. I would love to see you there. Rising Stars. I sat in this room and listened to Mike talk about the student conference he was planning, and the truth is, I was not visibly, but inside my head, I was rolling my eyes at this conference that had no date, that had no funding, that had no plan.
You saw him, myself. I think you were here when Elisa and I just sliced and diced.
No, I wasn't.
Oh man, it was.
Not right.
It was actually brutal. It wasn't called Rising Stars that
Yeah,
week.
it was. It
It
had
had,
a name.
it had a different name. It had four.
Okay.
It went through like 8 years worth of
And it was
different
canceled,
names.
whatever, 4 times.
4 times.
And
Three times.
yeah, and so I was sitting there like, this is like, are you serious? Why are you putting a slide up on this? Like, this is bad. And then somehow, and I have no credit for this, frankly, at all. Somehow,
We were all throwing rocks.
the phoenix arose, and this was a tremendous triumph. They don't want to lose money on it again, but
How much did they lose?
18,
Okay,
yes,
that's not bad for a first year.
not bad, and they had 150 people there.
153.
And 153?
Yeah.
Okay,
Not
153.
paid.
Were you on the committee?
I was.
Okay,
That's
so
why,
then
yeah.
she knows, so then that's why, so as you know, I did nothing, but it's a tremendous success. And so what we found at the South by Southwest meetings that we had, our joint area meeting, was that already in the southern area, student branches, like, hey, road trip, consumer electronics show. This is like a regular thing that they do, that those of us in the Southwest area had no idea this was a common thing for student branches to do. And so it leverages off of that and all the press that's going on at that time, and it's all the things that our paper competition isn't. And so my hat's off to you. Thank you, Pei-Zheng, for being the sole responsible party for this
This
meeting.
Okay, well,
Yeah, but she's got
He
got
wins.
a pretty big
I
budget.
attended.
he should,
Yeah.
we have another
Thank you.
attendee.
Okay, well, so
I have a feeling you're going to be a little more involved with the planning
This
of the
year,
next
yeah.
year.
Yeah.
Just to
yeah,
try.
defining
so
it.
so I'm looking forward for you guys to top yourselves next year. So this was also, so Region 6 was very much the envy of the other regions in terms of our initiative and innovation and service to members. So Career and Talent Expo, this slide is from Mike Andrews. So the idea is that it's an online expo.
Can we back up one more?
Yeah.
Just getting back to the idea of Rising Stars. We talked about it, and that was actually the big rock that myself and Elisa were griping about, is we have money that we could invest in something like this. We have all of the student training money, and if you just took and made one piece of the track to do all the student training money for the whole region there, And of course, it's international, so we're inviting everyone. They'll
Right.
get the same training that everybody else does. But most of the people that are there, we could send all of the, we could send all of the at least the chairs
Mhm.
for all, to something like this with the money we have travel dollars and so forth. And that $18,000 that you had,
Right.
we have more than that across the region.
Mhm.
And so now you're in, I don't know if you'll call it in the positive, but we're certainly inside of the budgeted items.
Right.
And I wouldn't call it a loss at that point, because that's what we're wanting to do. We want to invest in our membership and investing in them in such a way that it causes them to say, IEEE does cool things, we want to retain.
Right. So I'm completely with you.
I think one thing about Rising Star is they are defining it as a student conference. That's not as much as
I know.
officer training, because with a 2-day schedule, that's like really expensive to start with. They just don't have time for that.
Well, I'm just saying 2.5. And oh, by the way, if we're giving you $18,000, you got time.
Or you could, I mean, I think there are some.
You get my point. But there's ways to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so
How
here's
many
the
guys?
Career Talent Expo, month of June. Career resource access from 1 through 9, but the live recruiting 10 to 12. So the idea is, combining two highly effective technologies to provide scientific job matching at virtual platform environment. And so he's looking for support. He has people interested and signed up, and he mentioned particularly Micron that he'd had a meeting with. And the idea of free to members and part of encouraging that membership transition.
Yeah, that's dangerous, because that's the week after my MIT daughter graduates, and she's been procrastinating on job hunting.
Yes.
That's the week. She's supposed to be job hunting this next week.
So what I tell my students is, so I'm at a private university that's very expensive, and these students all their lives, many of them have been taken care of. And so, school gets, the graduation ceremony is the day before Memorial Day every year. And so, around May, I really should be looking for a job. When really, they should have been looking
All along.
October.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
And so here
Exactly.
we set this up for June, but hey,
Better
Yeah.
late than never.
let's, in the end, I think we end up saying that you need to have this in January, but
Well, junior.
Yeah.
let's have one.
Yeah, in San Diego, I asked Mike about the timing for it, and he said it's more important to have the expo than to get it scheduled at the ideal
There
time.
you go. Well, then I think there's something to be said for that.
Let's get started.
And related to that, Tom is really big. We need to look at, instead of traveling people, we need to have virtual hybrid conferences. My skepticism is, okay, well, let's see that. Let's have it happen, and let's see what results. So when we talked at the last Southwest Area meeting, we brought this up, and everybody in the room said, no, we don't want to we want it in person. That's part of what we get out of the event. But there's a lot of technical things that if the goal is purely technical, online is a great way to go. Finally, finally after an hour of listening to me, I haven't looked at my watch, I hope it's an hour. So, IEEE USA meeting plug will be 14th to 17th of May in conjunction with the 36th IEEE Great Lakes Biomedical Conference. I think, is it Milwaukee? Does it say Milwaukee?
Milwaukee, yes.
Milwaukee. And sections are urged to send representatives. One will be paid for by IEEE USA.
So what Keith
Yeah,
Moore told
you're
me
paid
is
there.
that they'll pay the registration, the region will pay the registration, or IEEE USA pays the registration for the PACE representative, but the sections are responsible for paying for the travel.
Okay, so that's better knowledge than I have, so good. Thank you.
I'd love for IEEE USA to pay the transportation too, but that was my understanding from Keith.
Said for the pace person.
It's
Well,
targeted primarily
you
for,
say
for
representative,
yeah.
but I just want to make sure.
Just like, I make them go.
Yeah.
when I can go.
Yeah, generally it's a nice guy, but the one thing, from personal opinion, I'm receiving an award there,
Okay,
so I'm gonna show.
so.
Yeah.
You're gonna be the only one from Region 10.
You could mix and mingle
Yeah.
with Dan Frisch's.
Yeah.
That's just it.
I used to work in Rockford, Illinois, and I have friends who still live in the Milwaukee area.
There,
I'll go.
so, there you go. All right, so thank you for listening to me for way more than 15 minutes.
Oh, no, you're
I think we set you for 45.
I'm pretty sure